So back in the early 2000s, there were actually quite a few really smart people who all had basically the exact same million-dollar idea.
Right, the collegiate social network.
Exactly. And the crazy thing is, the underlying code for this wasn't really all that revolutionary.
No, not at all.
I mean, the concept itself wasn't even unique, but somehow one of those projects just exploded into a global empire that, fundamentally rewired how humans communicate.
While the others just ended up as, well, basically footnotes in tech history.
Yeah, totally forgotten. So the big question is why?
Well, it's because in the digital economy, having a brilliant idea is honestly worth almost nothing.
Really, almost nothing.
Yeah, I mean, the market doesn't reward the concept itself. It rewards the sequencing, the ecosystem architecture, and just the absolute sheer velocity of the execution.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a fascinating analytical excerpt titled Strategic Lessons from the Social Network.
And we are treating this basically as a masterclass, right?
Exactly. Tailored entirely for you listening, whether you're, say, a startup founder trying to get your own idea off the ground or a manager dealing with a huge digital pivot.
Or honestly, even if you're just insanely curious about why the apps on your phone hold so much power over your life.
Right. We are completely tearing down the hidden mechanics of digital dominance today.
And, we should probably clarify right at the top, we're not doing a movie review here.
No, definitely not.
We're dissecting the raw strategy. We're looking at how network effects actually trigger, why execution speed is basically a literal weapon, and how governance choices made in some random dorm room end up dictating a global platform survival.
It's wild to think about.
Yeah.
But to understand how these digital empires actually win, we first have to, well, look at how they break all the rules of traditional business.
They really do just throw the old rule book out the window.
They do. So think about traditional business, like a vending machine.
Okay, a vending machine.
Right. You build the machine, you stock it with soda, someone puts in money, and they get a drink. It's a one-to-one transaction.
Right.
The value is entirely in the physical product and the distribution. If you put a vending machine in a good spot, people will buy the soda.
But a platform business is entirely different.
How so?
It's a lot more like, say, the telephone network.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. Because if you are the absolute only person on Earth with a telephone, it is basically a useless plastic brick.
Yeah, who are you going to call?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But every single time a new person gets a phone, your phone suddenly becomes more valuable.
Because your potential connections just expanded.
Exactly. You don't provide the entertainment or the content, you just provide the connection. The users co-create the value for each other.
So the shift from inherent value to co-created value, that changes everything, doesn't it?
It changes every single rule in the playbook.
Because in a traditional pipeline business, if I go out and buy a super expensive high-end espresso machine, it brews a fantastic cup of coffee, regardless of how many of my neighbors buy that same machine.
Right, your experience is completely static.
But in a platform market, the system gets exponentially more valuable just because more people are actively using it.
Which brings us to the absolute core engine of digital dominance, which is network effects.
Network effects.
Yeah. And it's easy to forget that the actual idea of a digital identity or a social network, that was already proven.
Right. I mean, Friendster and MySpace were already huge.
Exactly. They had already shown that people desperately wanted to exist online. The opportunity was just kind of sitting right there.
So the true genius wasn't inventing the idea of the social network at all.
No, not really. The genius was figuring out how to achieve what economists actually call liquidity.
Liquidity, like financial liquidity.
Sort of, but for users. It's that exact tipping point where the network becomes entirely self-sustaining, where there's enough activity that nobody wants to leave.
Ah, I see.
And achieving that liquidity, it requires a self-reinforcing architecture. The market rewards organizations that can, mobilize resources to build a powerful feedback loop.
So once you hit a certain density of users, something just shifts psychologically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It generates this crazy cycle where more users create more value, which then effortlessly attracts even more users.
And crucially, that growing scale actively discourages anyone from leaving, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, think about it. If literally every single person you know is communicating on one specific network, the social cost of deleting your account is enormous.
It's massive. You aren't just deleting an app from your home screen.
Right. You're giving up your connection to your entire friend group. You'd vanish.
Yeah, the ecosystem itself actually becomes the moat that protects the business from competitors.
Which naturally brings up, I think, the most difficult challenge for any founder listening to this.
Which is how you actually manufacture that density in the first place.
Exactly. How do you spark that ecosystem from absolutely nothing?
And this is where the strategy and the source material gets incredibly counterintuitive.
Yeah, it really goes against the grain because if
Yeah.
you're, say, pitching a startup today, the natural instinct, and frankly, the narrative you hear from every VC out there, is that you need massive global scale immediately.
Right. Go big or go home.
Exactly. Open the doors to everyone on Earth on day one. But the analysis we're looking at highlights that going broad right out of the gate is actually a fatal trap.
It's a total trap. Assuming that rapid scale means expanding everywhere simultaneously, well, it dilutes the exact thing that makes people want to join in the first place.
You end up with a digital ghost town.
Exactly.
Wait, hold on though. I've got to step in here and play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Because almost every startup founder is under immense pressure from investors to get massive user acquisition numbers as fast as humanly possible,
Well,
right?
sure. The pressure is wild.
So if I intentionally restrict my brand new product to just one single university campus, aren't I just handing the market on a silver platter to a competitor who goes broad on day one?
I get why you'd think that.
I mean, why would I willingly put a speed limit on my own growth?
Because 1,000 users scattered randomly across the globe provide absolutely zero value to each other.
Oh, because they don't know each other.
Right. They never interact. They log in, see nobody they know, and bounce. But 1,000 users crammed into a single university dorm. That creates a revolution.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
The case study here, launching exclusively to Harvard students first, wasn't just about artificial scarcity or being a snob.
Right.
It was a highly calculated strategic move to exploit an environment that already had incredibly dense social ties.
So they essentially artificially manufactured that digital liquidity overnight
Exactly.
because the offline network was already there. These students were already taking the same classes, eating in the same dining halls, going to the exact same parties on the weekend.
Right, the platform didn't have to force them to connect. It just provided a digital mirror for a physical reality that was already super dense.
And beyond just mirroring reality, that strict exclusivity solved a huge problem for the early internet, which was trust.
Oh, trust was a massive issue back then.
Yeah. By restricting access strictly to people with a harvard.edu email address, they basically embedded identity verification directly into the onboarding process.
You knew exactly who you were talking to.
Right. You knew the person you were interacting with was a real human being on your campus.
And doing that established relevance, legitimacy, and safety long before they ever tried to approach the chaotic, heterogeneous general public.
That is just fascinating. So instead of trying to be everything to everyone and failing miserably, they aligned their whole product design around a razor-sharp value proposition for one very specific niche.
Yep, and that value was identity and status.
And by doing that, they prevented the kind of feature dilution that ends up ruining so many early-stage startups today.
Exactly. Because focus creates strength.
Right.
Once you achieve absolute dominance and density in that initial tight niche, you build resilience, you gather the leverage, you get the user data, and you build the technological robustness you need to actually expand.
And when they did expand, the strategy wasn't just a free-for-all, right?
No, it was a highly disciplined, almost militaristic sequencing.
Like a ladder.
Exactly. They went from Harvard to the other Ivy League schools, then to broader university networks, then high schools, and only then, after securing all that, did they open up to the general public.
But, having that tight, exclusive niche at Harvard creates a totally new problem.
Oh, a huge problem.
Because you've just successfully proved to the whole world that the collegiate social network model is a goldmine.
You've shown everyone the blueprint.
Right. Which means highly capable, well-funded competitors are instantly going to try and clone your platform at Stanford or Yale or wherever.
Yet the clones pop up immediately.
So your exclusivity was your launch pad, but now you have to essentially outrun your own clones.
And this is exactly where the strategy has to just violently shift gears.
How so?
Well, once that beachhead is secured and you've proven the formula works, hesitation is fatal. Timing and execution speed cease to be just, like operational metrics.
Right.
They become a strategic weapon.
Hmm.
You use speed to preemptively dominate the battlefield before anyone else can dig in.
Reading the accounts of this rapid expansion phase in the text, It completely shatters that whole romanticized myth of the lone genius casually coding in a dorm room while eating pizza.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't casual at all. It was intensely aggressive.
We're talking about absolute marathon coding sessions, instantaneous feature iterations, and literally launching at adjacent universities the precise second they saw a competitor trying to gain a foothold.
Because the firm that reaches critical mass first in any given local network gains an advantage that is basically impossible for rivals to reverse.
Really? Impossible.
Pretty much. Think about it. If a competitor tries to launch a technically superior platform at a university a week after you've already captured 80% of the student body there.
Their superior code is completely irrelevant.
Exactly.
Because, again, the competitor isn't fighting your code. They are fighting the social inertia of thousands of students who have already uploaded their photos, established their friend groups, and claimed their digital territory.
Moving fast in that scenario isn't just about efficiency. It's about locking the doors from the inside before anyone else can even enter the building.
Wow. Locking the doors from the inside, that's a great way to phrase it.
It's ruthless, but it's true. In fast-moving digital industries, if you lack the sheer velocity to transform your concept into scalable infrastructure faster than your rivals, you die.
You just never achieve the adoption threshold needed to survive.
Right. Like we said, several other collegiate networks existed. The distinguishing factor was just the raw intensity of the execution.
But, okay, let's look at the inevitable fallout of that kind of intensity.
The dark side of scale.
Exactly. We've established that preemptive domination requires incredible speed. But if your entire survival as a company depends on outrunning well-funded clones, your absolute mandate becomes speed above all else.
Right. Move fast and break things.
Yes. And that mandate carries a huge structural cost.
It really does. It
Yeah.
creates this profound tension between achieving rapid market scale and actually maintaining corporate responsibility.
Because things start falling through the cracks.
Exactly. As user growth explodes exponentially, the central narrative inside the company shifts. It's no longer just about fun product features. It becomes about control, ownership, and influence.
And this brings us to a part of the analysis that I think a lot of aspiring startup leaders completely overlook.
Governance.
Governance, meaning who actually holds the ultimate decision rights, how the equity is divided up, who controls the board of directors.
Right.
People think that's just administrative paperwork you hand off to some lawyer to figure out. But governance is the literal DNA of the company.
And it dictates how the platform is going to behave years later when it holds unprecedented global power.
Exactly. Because to execute a strategy that is so reliant on moving at lightning speed, founders often demand highly centralized, basically unchecked authority.
Yeah, you can't move fast and preempt rivals if every single feature rollout requires a 2-week Democratic committee vote.
Right. But that raises an incredibly uncomfortable question from the text. Can a startup strategy be wildly effective by all traditional market metrics, yet structurally deeply flawed at the exact same time?
And the source material really forces us to look at the reality that, yes, you absolutely can.
You can build a massive, undeniable success on a foundation that's literally littered with damaged relationships, cutthroat equity disputes, and pretty deep failures of trust.
And we have to trace the causality here, right? Because the decisions made in those early chaotic days, they aren't just contained to the startup phase.
They ripple outward.
They ripple outward into society. When a platform scales to billions of users, it magnifies the value it provides, sure. But it equally magnifies the harm caused by its early structural blind spots.
And to be completely clear for you listening,
Yeah.
we aren't taking sides on the modern political debate surrounding tech platforms today.
No, not at all.
The analysis we are exploring remains completely impartial on that front. It simply asks us to objectively observe the physics of the situation.
Right, it's just structural reality.
Exactly. If a company's core algorithmic mandate from day one is frictionless scaling and maximizing user retention just to starve out competitors, that system will naturally amplify whatever content keeps people engaged.
Regardless of the societal cost.
Exactly. It's just a machine doing what it was programmed to do in the dorm room.
Which is exactly why early governance is paramount. You know, strategy cannot only be judged by market dominance in the short term.
No, it can't.
It has to eventually be assessed by accountability, ethical conduct, and long-term legitimacy. If the drive for speed completely overrides ethical discipline early on.
Or if the founders secure total unchecked power without corresponding accountability.
Then the platform inevitably faces a massive crisis of trust down the road.
And when your entire business model is acting as the host of that dinner party we talked about earlier,
Right.
where you are entirely dependent on the voluntary participation of the guests, a crisis of trust isn't just a PR problem.
No, it's an existential threat to the platform itself.
Because the stakes evolve. It goes from who gets to control the collegiate market to issues of global privacy, information integrity, and the sheer societal weight of having unchecked platform power.
Exactly. Strategic success, built without ethical foresight, eventually produces highly unstable foundations.
It's a house of cards.
In a way, yeah.
Hmm.
Because when a small group of early founders redesigns the entire infrastructure of human communication, their early choices about corporate culture literally end up shaping how humanity interacts.
It is genuinely wild to think about.
It really is.
So, bringing this all together, what does this actually mean for you, the listener? Let's just trace the massive strategic arc we've unpacked today.
Let's do it.
First, you have to recognize that the battlefield has fundamentally changed. Network effects mean that the value is no longer just in the product itself.
Right, it's in the ecosystem that your users co-create.
Exactly. Second, the whole myth of instant global scale is a trap. Dominating a highly dense, focused niche builds the resilience and the digital liquidity you need for sustainable growth.
Because step-by-step sequencing and focused positioning always beats scattered ambition.
Always.
Ugh.
Third, once that focused niche catches fire, execution speed becomes your primary weapon.
You don't just grow. You preemptively lock out rivals by raising the social switching costs for your users so high that they can't leave.
Right. And finally, governance and ethics are not peripheral to strategy. They are the absolute core of your long-term survival.
Because the structural choices you make early on to achieve that rapid scale will eventually dictate your platform's long-term sustainability.
So, whether you are trying to scale a new venture right now, or leading a team through a complex digital pivot, or you just want to be a highly informed participant in the modern digital economy, understanding this architecture completely shifts your perspective.
It changes how you see everything.
It does. The next time you open a social app or a gig economy platform or a digital marketplace on your phone, look past the interface.
Look at the plumbing.
Right. Recognize that these companies didn't just enter a pre-existing market. They systematically redesigned the market to make themselves the absolute center of gravity.
They absolutely did. And, the analysis leaves us pondering a really critical dynamic about the future of these digital empires.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if a platform truly succeeds in completely rewiring patterns of communication and social behavior, and its entire astronomical valuation is based purely on the network effects generated by its users,
Yeah.
at what point do those users realize that they are the ones who actually hold the ultimate power to demand better governance?
Wow. That flips the entire power dynamic totally upside down.
It really does.
If the guests are the literal only reason the dinner party has any value in the first place, the guests can collectively demand a better host.
Precisely. The platform only retains its dominance for exactly as long as we decide to keep participating in the ecosystem.
That is a brilliant thought to leave on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the hidden architecture of the digital spaces you inhabit every day, and we'll catch you next time.